So I was to some extent going down there expecting to find out, hey, listen, you know what? We're overpaying a little bit for the property, but the financing makes the deal so attractive that it's still a win. That's not the case. Turns out that it's right in line with the market. If not, maybe even we're getting a small deal because I'm buying the full package. So last week, went to Melbourne, Florida to go check out our newest fund, which is going to be paddleboard townhomes. It's a community of 24 condos on the water, and it's in a unique kind of when I say on the water, it's not on the ocean, but it's on this, I don't remember exactly what they called it, but there's a specific name for this particular type of body of water. The body of water, so you have the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, then you have essentially the peninsula, which is like Merritt Island and like the whole, it runs, if you look at Florida on the map, there's like this peninsula that you have like Miami Beach, South Beach, Miami Beach, North Beach, and then all the way up to like Merritt Island, which is where they launched the space shuttles, where it's very close to that area, the Merritt Island area where the shuttles launch. And there's the Atlantic Ocean, you have the peninsula and or island, and then you have a bay, whichever bay that is, and then you have this river that comes off the bay. Okay. And it's like this little inlet, and that's where these properties are. But that inlet connects to the bay, and then the bay connects to the ocean. And great location, right off one of the main arteries in the area to get to wherever you want. Right in the backyard of major employers like Northrop. I might be butchering that name, but like Northrop, a bunch of defense contractors, and Satellite.
And the portfolio is of 12 or all 24?
Sorry, I didn't get into that. So it's the portfolio that I'm purchasing is 12, and it's 12 off of the water. There's 12 backing onto the water, and there's 12 that are off the water, literally right across the street. This is going to be a gated community right across the street. And the reason why I like the 12, well, first of all, I would have bought the entire community, but they sold the water units to individual, mostly owners. If I would have come across this earlier, I would have bought everything. But nonetheless, I still like across the street. And the reason why I like across the street a little bit better than the water is because you still have the same access to water. There's going to be a really nice dock being built 60 feet out into the water with its own gazebo.
That's
right?
nice.
Really cool. There's paddleboard launches. There's, what do you call those boats that have the big tubes that run underneath? Pontoon boats.
Yeah, like a pontoon.
There's pontoon launches off the property. And the homes across the street have access to all of those. The only thing that the homes across the street will not have is direct, backyard water views, which, don't get me wrong, is amazing. However, it's not what it wasn't in the cards. Now, what's also interesting about this deal is that for the most part, the units that I'm purchasing are $100,000 below the price point of where the water unit sold for.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what's more interesting is John, who's been selling real estate for 30 years, found that to be really interesting because typically you don't see that much of a percentage difference, or you don't see that much of a spread between the exact same unit on the water versus not on the water. You wouldn't see, a 20% or 25% spread from water to not water.
And does
that make sense?
It does. What's the unit mix like? How many beds? How many baths?
So
is there a garage?
Yeah, it's 2 beds, 2.5 baths, and a 1-car garage. Main floor laundry, which is great.
That's nice.
Brand new. They're brand new, which I don't necessarily. I'm usually not an investor on brand new property, but I love the concept of brand new property on the water. You know how I love water.
Yeah.
There's 2 things that I love the most. I love proximity to water. This is right on the water, and I love senior properties, right? But you know, in terms of being a safe investment during very, you know, volatile times, I guess you could say now, the deal was seller financing, and I ended up working out amazing terms on the seller financing.
What are the terms?
2% interest only for up to 30 years.
Wow.
The terms are also, the financing is also assumable by the new buyer that comes in.
Which is a huge value.
Which, like, so let me paint you guys a picture. When I first bought Canton Manor, that was at the height of COVID. When I bought North Miami Beach, when I bought Canton Manor, that's when rates really started to come down. When I bought North Miami Beach, Bayview Palms, that's when rates were at their all-time lowest across the board, North America. In Canton Manor, I got a rate of 3.9% principal and interest. When I bought Bayview Palms in North Miami Beach, I got a rate of 3.8% principal and interest. To get 2%,
interest only, which on new property, that's kind of where you want to be. The reason being is because obviously new cost of construction, it's new. You're never really going to walk into a situation where you're going to be getting, you know, amazing cap rates, and you're going to be getting a deal on the property and all this stuff. Usually what you do is have to buy pre-construction, which I don't like pre-construction because that can take way too long. Right.
To you know, the market could shift during the pre-construction phases. We've seen that in Toronto. That's not something that I like. There's too much risk. So for me, first of all, interest only on a new property is a no-brainer. That's what you see guys like Grant Cardone doing on the newer property. He loves to invest in, you know, newer construction, and he'll go in typically interest only because that's the only financing that works on those deals. Until you start getting into properties that have aged a bit, that there's some sort of value add or there's something that you can that you could leverage on that property in order to push rents further. New construction interest only is usually the way to go. What's very interesting is that the property still works with principal and interest, which is how I underwrote it, because that's the way that the banks require properties to work. Banks, when they run interest only or they offer interest only mortgages on properties, they underwrite the deal based off of a typical principal and interest as if the rate was principal and interest and not interest only. And if it qualifies based off of their debt service coverage ratio and their LTV, then that's when they go ahead with it. If it doesn't, but it still works interest only, they won't do the deal. Right.
So you mentioned this was new construction. How far along, like, is it fully built, ready for occupancy?
So it's fully built. They're completing the finishes now in the unit. So right when we're ready to close, that's when the deal is going to be, or right when we're ready to close, that's when the units are going to be completed.
Now, do you have a contingency on the offer of like an occupancy permit?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Certificate
it's
of
going to be
occupancy.
ready. Yeah. It's going to be ready for occupancy once.
Of course. Yeah.
Coach
and they're also
over.
giving us 60 free, 60 days, of a term to lease up the units. They're also allowing us to pre-lease. They're also allowing us to.
So that means that no mortgage payments.
No mortgage payments
for 60 days.
Exactly. No mortgage payments for the first 60 days. Yeah. I mean, an all-around great property, a great location. It's in a very unique location, not even because of the water. It's centrally located right in Melbourne. It's a little bit of a quieter town, but again, you have some of the biggest employers in that part of Florida 5 minutes away. Northrop, you got other. When I was driving around, we did a video. When I was driving around, number one, Northrop is huge. It's unbelievable. It's like it took you like a couple minutes to drive by.
Wow.
Then you have satellite contractors. You've got defense contractors. You've got
a lot of software companies, which was, it seemed like a lot of these buildings that we were passing was this kind of software, that software. And it was just a lot of software companies. And the guy that I drove around with is actually from the area. So he was, and I met him through the car scene, right? And when we went down there, he's been great at, giving me some feedback and on different locations of Florida and stuff like that. But he lives in the area about 10 minutes away from that particular property. So it was great hearing his perspective from someone that actually lives in the area, right? Yeah, he ended up bringing through property managers that he also works with quite a bit. So the way that he works with them is he'll bring them prospective customers or clients, and they'll find, units for him to or for his clients to rent or whatever, but he works with them a lot.
Nice.
And they went through the property. They backed up everything that, on paper it was showing, that Rob, the agent, was showing.
Yeah.
And then also, more importantly, what the selling agents were telling me, which I always take what selling agents tell me.
Because everything on paper worked out. You essentially went down there to check on the actual market.
So what I was thinking was I was going to get down there, and the reason why he was offering me such great seller financing was because I was going to be significantly overpaying for the property. I couldn't find anything alluding to the fact that I was overpaying, but sometimes you don't really know until you go down there and find out what the market's like with boots on the ground. So I was, to some extent, going down there expecting to find out, hey, listen, you know what? We're overpaying a little bit for the property, but the financing makes the deal so attractive that it's still a win. That's not the case. Turns out that it's right in line with the market. If not, maybe even we're getting a small deal because I'm buying the full package. Not a crazy deal. I wouldn't expect to really ever get an amazing deal on new construction that's going to be ready at the time of closing. I would expect to get deals on pre-construction that's like a year or two out, right? Because obviously the developers, what do they have to do? They have to they have to get contracts on the units in order to get financing from the bank. So they offer discounts to get the units sold, right? Yeah. So that's not the case. We're getting market, if not a little bit better than market, because I'm taking down the rest of the units and maybe consider it a bulk discount for buying 12. But so altogether, with that amazing financing and the terms of the deal that I've negotiated and the purchase price of the actual units and what you can rent the units for, and the property manager, what's interesting is she thinks that according to my underwriting, which I underwrote it at $2,600 per unit rent, she thinks that we can get 28. Now, I'm not going to underwrite it to about 28 because I feel like 26 is kind of in line with what I'm seeing in the market. But she seems to think because it's newer build, on the water, gated community, going to have that nice water access to a really nice dock, 60-foot dock out into the the river. Not only that, but even stuff like when I was there was bottlenose dolphins jumping out of the water. There was a manatee laying out. Like, that shit's crazy.
That's cool.
That was really cool to see a few dolphins just jumping in and out of the water. And apparently they're always in there. Yeah, that's what's really unique. That's where I was going. That's where I was headed earlier. Is that this body of water is really unique where you have animals like that kind of come in there and take I don't know what they're doing, feeding, taking a break, I don't know, spawning. I have no idea what's going on, or breeding or whatever. I don't know what's going on with them, but there was a lot of dolphins in that, and apparently it's extremely common for you to see dolphins there. So imagine being out on your 60-foot dock in the river and there's dolphins around you. Like, that's insane. Yeah. So all in all, I'm really excited about this opportunity, and terms were great. LTV was really good too, 65-35. They requested an extra 5%. It was originally going to be 70-30. I told them that the 70-30, 4% interest only. I told him that the interest rate's too high and the deal doesn't work because of the purchase price. And he was like, okay, you know what? To put the deal together, I'll do 2% interest only at 65. I tried to get 70 still. He wouldn't do it. 65-35 is still very aggressive, comparatively speaking, to what you're going to get with traditional financing anyways. So I still like the deal, and the next steps are, I'm pretty much in the late stages of due diligence. And, once that's closed up, we're going to, in the next couple of days, we're going to be opening up the fund, and, people can get their soft commitments in, and we're going to go full steam ahead.
Awesome.